Single mother scolded for crying twins. You won't believe the incredible truth revealed nearby. The sun blazed down on the park, a merciless ball of heat that made sweat bead at Sarah's brow and clung to the back of her neck. She watched as Lily and Max sprinted toward the swings, their laughter dancing on the warm breeze. But the joy of the afternoon shattered when Lily, in her unbridled enthusiasm, slipped and landed on the ground with a thud, a heart-wrenching wail erupting from her tiny frame. Max, sensing trouble, mirrored his sister's distress. In an instant, the bright, carefree atmosphere spun into chaos. "Stop crying, both of you," Sarah's voice snapped, sharper than she intended, like a held breath finally released. She felt the heat of disapproving eyes on her, parenting judgments swirling in the air around them. Whispered remarks, hidden behind the backs of hands and cupped mouths, pierced deeper than they should have. Momentarily, she was silhouetted against the sun, a single mother caught in a perfect storm of humiliation. Max turned to her with big round eyes, and silence stretched painfully as they soaked up her anger. It was the kind of silence where emotions collide, love, disappointment, and fear all compressing in her chest, demanding release. She felt panic rise within her, tightening her throat, expelling all the air from her lungs. Her professional life already brimming with pressures, countless nights spent painting in dim light, visualizing a creative future, eclipsed by the mundane existence of bills and repairs, now threatened her very connection to her children. The harsh reality was that economic inequality loomed like a specter over her. The reprimanding glares from other mothers stung, each one laced with reminders of the social class disparity that hung heavy in their affluent suburb. Sarah's life felt worlds apart from the others leisurely sipping coffee in the cafe nearby. Each overlooked masterpiece she created felt less significant against the weight of overdue bills and rent that loomed like angry clouds above her head. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as despair threatened to swallow her whole, Sarah spotted Grace, the kind-hearted elderly woman who lived 2 blocks away. Grace was a soft presence in a harsh world, her gaze wise but gentle. Their regular encounters had become an unexpected highlight in Sarah's chaotic life. Somehow, in mere glances and soft-spoken words, Grace managed to unravel the tightly wound knots of frustration that had taken root in Sarah's heart. But just when it seemed Sarah might find reprieve, Grace revealed something that sent her spinning: her late husband's hidden art collection. The work of a man once celebrated yet forgotten would potentially hold answers, not only for her financial woes, but for an emotional journey she hadn't realized she was yearning for. Envy twisted within as she envisioned a pathway to recognition, yet deep down, the specter of self-doubt loomed large, whispering that she was unworthy of such a destiny. In this whirlwind of conflicting emotions, a public art competition glimmered like a distant lighthouse against her turbulent sea of desperation. The prize was a chance at something real, something promising. Yet with it came a gnawing fear. What if she failed? As she faced her internal conflict, the twins played blissfully oblivious just steps away, embodying the innate optimism she had lost. Their innocence contrasted sharply with the heavy choices she grappled with. And in that fraught moment under the scorching sun, she understood. While she wrestled with her identity as an artist and a single mother, her deepest desire to create a nurturing legacy for Lily and Max flickered like the brushstrokes on her canvas. She stood teetering at the precipice of ambition and fear, uncertain of the future, unaware that an old acquaintance from her past would soon murmur secrets that could unravel whatever fragile hope she had finally managed to rebuild. As the evening air cooled, a faint glimmer of determination ignited within Sarah. It was time to confront the duality of her existence, the artist and the caretaker. Grace's revelation lingered in her mind like a poignant melody, coaxing her spirit to awaken. For too long, she had relegated her creativity to the dusty corners of her life, overshadowed by the relentless clock of responsibility. The art collection, whether remnants of a forgotten legacy or a bridge to her own aspirations, began to feel less like a burden and more like a lifeline. The next morning, the twins were still dreaming, their soft breaths punctuating the quiet of the house. Sneaking downstairs, Sarah brewed a pot of coffee, the rich aroma sparking clarity amidst the early haze. As she filled her mug, the realization sank in. She could no longer afford to hide behind insecurity and fear. If Grace saw potential in her work, maybe it was time to acknowledge it herself. After a hastily consumed breakfast, Sarah grabbed her sketchbook and a few supplies. She decided to embrace the chaos of the previous day, not as a failure but as inspiration. The project for the art competition could symbolize not only her growth as an artist, but also her evolution as a mother. With each stroke of the pencil, she imagined the vibrant colors of joy, chaos, and love spilling out onto the page. Time passed in a blur. Morning faded into afternoon as the children played, a comforting backdrop to her quiet ambition. What had started as a frenzied outpouring of emotion transformed into a hesitant, yet propelled by a newfound resolve. She began to formulate a plan. If she could channel her frustrations into tangible art, perhaps she could inspire her children with the essence of resilience and creativity. But with motivation came discomfort, the realization that she needed financial assistance to sustain both the project and her family's needs gnawed at her relentlessly. Motivation intertwined with hesitation, leading to sleepless nights filled with restless dreams of gallery openings and echoes of applause. Was it irresponsible to invest time in art when bills loomed menacingly on the horizon? Could she stake everything on this intangible dream? Days bled into weeks, and the deadline for submissions grew closer. Sarah felt the familiar weight of self-doubt creep in. What if her artwork was dismissed as a mere hobby? What if she was just an amateur overshadowed by accomplished artists? Each question tightened the knot of anxiety in her stomach. As she thrived in her creative flurry, it was matched by an equally potent fear of vulnerability, the fear of exposing her soul to judgment. Then fate intervened. One afternoon, after an intense session of painting, she stumbled upon an old email from a former mentor, someone who had once guided her during her formative years. Their correspondence had faded over the years, but she felt a surge of nostalgia and an impulsive need to reconnect. The message was simple, yet filled with unfamiliar electricity, an invitation to discuss emerging artists and a chance to showcase work in a local gallery. Could this be the opportunity she had been waiting for? The mentor, who had once seen the spirit in her work, might reignite the spark of confidence she so desperately needed. It felt absurdly coincidental. Could the universe truly conspire to support her dreams? She hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard, battling internal demons that whispered that anything less than perfect was unworthy. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling her heartbeat in her throat, and decided to hit send. Perhaps it was time to leap beyond her fears and embrace the possibility of failure as a part of growth. Just as she composed herself, a knock at the door jolted her from her thoughts. It was Grace, her wrinkled face alight with urgency. "I have something to show you," she said, eyes sparkling with delight. "You won't believe what I found in the attic." Sarah felt her heart race. Was this moment guiding her closer to her aspirations, or would it pull her further into uncertainty? What could possibly unfold next? The attic door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit space cluttered with remnants of the past. Grace shuffled inside, her excitement palpable as she guided Sarah through the clutter. The musty scent of forgotten memories clung to the air, each box and cobweb a testament to time immemorial. Sarah felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation as her eyes scanned the chaotic jumble. "Look here," Grace exclaimed, tugging at a tattered canvas tucked behind a stack of boxes. She pulled it free, revealing a vibrant painting that had seemingly escaped the passage of time. The colors were bold and captivating, swirling harmoniously in a dance of emotion. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It was not just any painting. It was a piece she had created in her youth, a representation of dreams that felt lost in the shadow of her responsibilities. Tears pricked at her eyes as she approached the artwork. Admiration mingled with nostalgia, rekindling a sense of self that had dimmed over the years. "I remember this," she whispered, tracing her fingers along the brushstrokes. It dawned on her that every brushstroke illustrated a part of her that had always longed to be expressed, woven intricately with her identity as a mother and an artist. Grace's voice shattered the silence. "You need to show this again, Sarah. This is still you." The words resonated deeply, igniting a rare moment of clarity. What if this was a sign, a way to merge the artist within her with her current life? Would exposing her past vulnerabilities help to encourage her present journey? Though the flood of emotions threatened to overwhelm her, she smiled through her tears. "This needs to be part of my submission, Grace. It's a crucial piece of who I am," she declared, her voice steadier than she had anticipated. But with that determination came the rush of doubt. Would anyone care about her old work? Grace noticed the shift in Sarah's demeanor. "Art isn't about others appreciating it," she advised, her tone soothing yet firm. "It's about the expression, about movement. Your voice deserves to be shared, no matter the outcome." That perspective was something Sarah had yearned for, but rarely articulated. Though laden with self-doubt, she realized that she needed to lean on this encouragement if she were to take the next step. The ensuing hours passed in a blur of creativity and passion, intertwined with uncertainty. As Sarah restored the painting, she realized that the joy she'd felt while painting late into the night was a stark contrast to her own experience in the last several weeks, which had been punctuated by anxiety about bills and deadlines. This suddenly felt different. This was reclaiming. The sun dipped low as Sarah transitioned back to her current project, infusing the artistic energy from her past into modern strokes on the page. Illustrating joy, hope, and that indomitable spirit, she wrestled with ink and paint in ways that felt more liberated. Yet, as night fell, that familiar dread clung to the edges of her perception. Would she be brave enough to take this newly reinvigorated artwork to a gallery? A strange tension accompanied that thought. What if she poured every ounce of herself into the competition only to falter? What if her children saw her failure? With every tick of the clock, the deadline loomed closer, but so did the weight of her own expectations. The next morning, after a restless night filled with questions, buzzing like bees in her mind, she received a text from her mentor. "Looking forward to our meeting, Sarah. Can't wait to see what you've been working on." Those words caught in her throat, bringing both exhilaration and fear. Was she ready to reveal the depths of her vulnerabilities and passions? It was time to make a choice, either step into the light of her potential or retreat once more into the shadows of doubt. As she mulled over her decision, the doorbell rang. Sarah's heart plummeted. What awaited her on the other side could change everything. With a deep breath, Sarah approached the door, every nerve tingling with anticipation. Could it be Grace again, dropping by to bolster her resolve? Or perhaps a friend seeking solace in their shared challenges? As she opened the door, her heart sank. Standing on the threshold was a delivery person, the weight of a large parcel in hand, their expression a mix of curiosity and professionalism. "Package for you, ma'am," they stated, holding out an envelope marked with the unmistakable logo of the art gallery she had submitted to. A sudden rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins. The envelope felt like an anchor, dragging her away from the uncertainty that hovered precariously in the air. Thanks, Sarah mumbled, taking the envelope and retreating into the comforting sanctum of her home. She shut the door, her fingers trembling with eagerness mixed with anxiety. This was it, the moment that could bring her both validation and vulnerability, yet she hesitated. Nothing could obscure the truth that her heart was racing, a simultaneous battle between hope and dread. She sank into the couch, the envelope heavy in her lap, and focused on her thoughts. She had poured her heart into the painting, resurrecting fragments of her essence dramatized on canvas. But what if the gallery found it lacking? What if they dismissed her work as mere nostalgia? The prospect felt crushing. It was all she had, a shot at reclaiming her artistry, defining herself beyond the labels of mother and provider. With a resolve born out of need, she ripped the envelope open, a silent prayer on her lips. The moment her fingers grasped the letter, her breath hitched. "Dear Sarah," it began. Her eyes raced down the page. "We are pleased to inform you that we have selected your piece for the upcoming exhibit." The world around her blurred as the words danced before her eyes. Selected? It felt surreal, as if she were momentarily trapped in a dream where only joy existed. But the excitement was tempered by a flicker of self-doubt creeping in. Her mind raced. What if she was an imposter? What if her work wasn't as profound as she believed? The familiar question arose. Could she shoulder the weight of this new expectation, both for herself and her children? They would witness her triumph or failure. Could she handle their gaze? In that moment, she realized her battle was not just internal. And soon you'll get to see my work at the gallery. The twins peered up at her, their eyes a mix of curiosity and admiration. For an instant, Sarah felt a lift in her chest. Perhaps they would not see her efforts as a failure if she stumbled. Perhaps they would sense the significance of following one's passions, even when the path felt uncertain. As they cleaned together, scattered apples rolling back into the bowl under their small hands, Sarah began to formulate her artist statement in her mind. The connection to her daughters, expressive and unfiltered, would serve as the emotional backbone of her narrative. She knew she needed to weave them into her story as part of her artistic journey, a representation of love, chaos, and ambition intertwining beautifully. The evening stretched on as they regained control of the kitchen, laughter replacing tears amidst the hum of family life. Each noise, each mess was part of the fabric of her reality, one she was learning to embrace. Later on the couch, Sarah grabbed her notebook and began to scribble down phrases that captured her new understanding: vulnerability, authenticity, and truth. She found herself lost in thought. The words flowed more easily than before. But just as she began to gain a sense of clarity, a notification pinged on her phone, a call from the gallery. The moment seemed monumental, poised at the precipice of change. Should she answer, or did she need a moment to gather herself before facing whatever news awaited her? The tension crackled in the air, a new challenge looming, one that could shift the gears of her burgeoning identity. In that instant, she realized that standing at the brink of discovery was part of the artist's journey itself, faced with uncertainty, yet compelled to act. Torn between the weight of expectation and her own aspirations, Sarah hesitated, her finger hovering over the screen. Her heart hammered in her chest, a direct reflection of her inner turmoil. What would answering the call mean? What if it was a rejection, another reminder of what she had failed to achieve? Yet, if it were good news, perhaps it could be the validation she so desperately craved, the first affirmation in her journey back into the art world. In a moment of impulsivity, she pressed the green button, her breath catching as the call connected. "Hello?" she said, her voice steady despite the rumble of anxiety inside her. "Hi, Sarah. It's Lisa from the gallery. A bright voice rang through the speaker. "I hope you're doing well. We wanted to discuss your submission." The world around her faded, the kitchen dissolving into the background as she focused solely on the words being spoken. This was the moment she had been anticipating but dreaded simultaneously. Was she truly prepared for whatever lay ahead? "Thank you for calling," Sarah managed, trying to steady her voice even as her palms grew clammy. "I'm eager to hear your thoughts. We loved your pieces, so raw and—"
However, there are a few adjustments we believe are necessary before we can move forward. Every syllable felt like a double-edged sword. Flashes of her previous failures whispered through her mind, taunting her. She clenched her jaw, fighting the urge to retreat into self-doubt. "Adjustments?" she echoed, her voice betraying a hint of defensiveness. "Yes," Lisa said gently. "We think your work has great potential, but we'd like to see you capture a clearer narrative. We feel like the connection between your art and personal experiences, especially as a mother, could be more pronounced." Sarah's hands trembled lightly as she absorbed this feedback. It was almost as if Lisa were asking her to dig deeper, to expose all the chaos and vulnerability that she was trying to reconcile. She understood instinctively that this was more than just a technical adjustment. It was a request to lay bare her heart and confront every messy, beautiful moment she had experienced. "I can do that," Sarah whispered, the determination weaving through her uncertainty. "Fantastic. Let's set a follow-up in a week to discuss your revisions." The call ended, but the conversation echoed in her thoughts. Could weaving her personal narrative with her artwork be the breakthrough she needed? Would allowing herself to be emotionally transparent forge an unshakable bond between her new artistic identity and her daughter's perception of her? Yet that nagging doubt began to creep back in. Would they understand that embracing her vulnerabilities could lead to monumental growth? Did an artist who faltered in self-doubt have the right to advocate for their passions? With a rush of adrenaline, Sarah found herself racing to her canvas. The warning signals of chaos her daughters had symbolized earlier transformed into a canvas of inspiration. Each brushstroke represented a piece of her life. The frustration of her children's unruly behavior, the warmth of their laughter, and her complex journey through motherhood. As she lost herself in her art, her mind whirled with the implications of fully embracing her narrative. Would the gallery be ready for this raw honesty? Could she sustain a path that demanded so much of her emotionally? The clock ticked loudly in the background, a reminder that time was limited, and her next steps, both as a mother and an artist, were framed by choices and defining moments. As she added delicate layers to her painting, a stubborn resolve ignited within her. She needed to confront not just her art, but also the expectations she placed upon herself. With a final stroke, she stepped back and admired the piece. The chaotic beauty reflected her truth. This was just the beginning of a transformation, one that would challenge her to dive deeper, yet question everything she had known. A sudden clamor echoed through the house as her daughters hurried in, interrupting her moment of clarity. "Mommy, can we help?" In that instant, a mix of fear and excitement flooded her. She realized this was her chance, her opportunity to engage her girls directly in her creative process. Sharing the full spectrum of her life through their eyes. As the three of them gathered around, the harmony of their laughter balancing with the weight of her art, Sarah felt a fierce determination take hold. But would she find the strength to not only share her narrative, but also to teach her daughters the importance of vulnerability through their own fears and uncertainties? The challenge ahead loomed larger than life, a challenge she had yet to confront fully. Would she rise to meet it or shrink back, letting doubt win again? The answer awaited her as they reached for the paints, igniting the canvas of their enduring story together. The laughter of her daughters wrapped around Sarah like a warm embrace, pulling her momentarily from her self-imposed solitude. But beneath the surface of her joy, a heartbeat of anxiety thudded steadily, reminding her of the stakes that lingered. This collaboration could either amplify her artistic voice or expose her vulnerabilities in ways she had yet to confront. "Can we choose the colors, Mommy?" her oldest, Emily, asked enthusiastically, her eyes bright with excitement. "Absolutely. Let's bring whatever colors speak to you," Sarah replied, feeling her heart swell as her daughters rummaging through the assortment of paints, their giggles a delightful soundtrack to the burgeoning creative atmosphere. As the girls splayed colors across the canvas, their innocence felt liberating. Each swirl and dab they contributed added layers of meaning that transcended the simplicity of paint. It connected their world, rich with childhood wonder, to Sarah's narrative of motherhood. With every interaction, she felt more emboldened to weave her experiences into this collaborative art piece. But lurking behind this newfound connection was a persistent hesitation. Could she truly portray the chaotic beauty that motherhood entailed? What if she faltered in expressing the very emotions that so many women felt yet often stifled? Was she uniquely equipped to translate those tangled threads into art that resonated? "Mommy, look!" Emily exclaimed, her small hand pointing to a bright blue cloud they'd created together. "It's just like the ones we see outside." In that moment, Sarah saw the vibrant and raw connection to nature that her daughters effortlessly embodied, a connection she had lost while caught in the crosshairs of self-doubt. With a wave of clarity, she kneeled beside them, her fingers dancing through the colors, seeking to find not just beauty, but also authenticity. "Exactly. Clouds, like feelings, can be stormy or serene. What else do you see when you look outside?" she asked, probing deeper into their perspectives. "Sometimes it's scary," her younger daughter, Mia, said quietly, her voice tinged with the weight of realization. "The thunder makes me feel small." A pit formed in Sarah's stomach. This honesty struck deeply. In that moment, harnessing the art of vulnerability became both a challenge and a lifeline, not just for her own journey, but for teaching her girls that emotions, big and small, demanded to be expressed rather than buried under layers of expectation. "Let's capture that feeling," Sarah encouraged, a newfound determination flowing through her. "Art can help us show our fears. It can make the scary things less lonely." With renewed zeal, they poured their emotions into the canvas together, swirling colors that spoke of terror, joy, uncertainty, and hope. The artwork began to emerge, a testament to the beautiful chaos that painted their lives, a narrative of shared triumphs and fears. As the last light of the day flickered through the window, illuminating their creation, Sarah felt a sense of satisfaction blooming inside her. This was more than an artistic endeavor. It was a moment of profound connection, both with her daughters and herself. Their laughter echoed throughout the room, blending with the colors on the canvas. They had created something that told their story, one that resonated with every brushstroke and laughter. Yet, as she admired their work, a gnawing worry crept in, dragging her attention to the impending deadline for the gallery. Would it be enough? Would it resonate enough with the judges to validate her leap into the artistic world once again? As her thoughts whirled, the doorbell chimed unexpectedly, a sharp contrast to the warmth in the room. The sound unlocked a flood of possibilities. Was it Lisa coming to discuss the revisions? Or perhaps it was someone from the gallery with last-minute feedback. Either way, Sarah's heart raced with uncertainty tinged with anticipation. The moment of truth was inching closer, and she could almost taste the bittersweet mix of anxiety and excitement. Would she be ready to face whoever stood on the other side of that door? And in doing so, confront not just the gallery's expectations, but also her own truths? The melody of the doorbell lingered in the air, amplifying the tense silence that filled the room. Sarah's heart thudded as she cast one last glance at the canvas, a riot of color and emotion that encapsulated not just their artistic expression, but their very souls. It beckoned her to embrace her truths, yet doubt loomed like an unforgiving cloud. "Stay right here," she whispered to her daughters, not wanting to shatter the magical moment they had just created. As she trudged toward the door, an inexplicable weight seemed to drag on her feet. Each step toward the threshold could unveil the path she feared yet craved. She opened the door cautiously, bracing for a scenario already constructed by her anxious mind. There stood Lisa, her mentor from the art collective, with an eager smile contrasting the storm brewing inside Sarah. "Hey, I couldn't wait to see what you've been working on." Lisa's enthusiasm was infectious, but Sarah felt the prickle of vulnerability beneath her skin. What would her mentor think of her newfound foray into this collaborative field of art? "Come in, I'd love to show you," Sarah managed, her voice a fragile thread leaning between enthusiasm and fear. As they walked back to the living room, the vibrant canvas came into view, an explosion of colors competing. "Oh, wow!" Lisa exclaimed, genuine awe radiating from her. "This is absolutely stunning. You've really captured something special here." Though the praise washed over her, Sarah felt a dissonance between her perceived success and her internal chaos. "Do you think, would it work for the gallery?" Sarah's voice wavered, a faint whisper laced with doubt. "Not just work, it sings," Lisa replied, her eyes sparkling. "You've tapped into a narrative that many will resonate with. But I sense there's more underneath, something deeper." The compliment hung heavily between them, but instead of lifting her spirits, it pressed down on Sarah's chest, making it harder to breathe. Did she truly hold something profound, or was Lisa merely saying what she thought Sarah wanted to hear? "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone cutting into the moment. Frustration bubbled within her. If she was to grow, she needed to tear through the fragile layers of her bravado. "Your daughter's honesty reflects raw emotions we often suppress. This piece, it's not just art, it's a conversation starter. But only if you're willing to delve deeper." As Lisa continued, Sarah felt the warmth of her encouragement mingling with the cold grip of fear. What did that deeper truth require from her? Fear flickered like a flame, urging her to confront the emotional blockades that had held her back for so long. "Okay," Sarah surrendered, against the cacophony of worry that rallied within her. "I'll dig deeper." A promise, though uncertain, solidified within her, a commitment to seek authenticity over acceptance. Lisa nudged her gently. "Remember, vulnerability is strength. Own your story and others will follow." The words rang true, echoing the connection she had felt with her daughters while they painted, yet the doubt clung tightly. Moments later, they shifted back to the canvas, and Sarah felt an urgency surge. If her heart was indeed the palette, she must color it with her truest feelings, both the light-hearted moments and the storms that brewed inside. With every stroke of the brush, she would face the chaos that painted her life, her joys and fears head on. Then, a sudden loud thunderclap outside jolted her back to reality. Panic tangled with resolve. "Mommy!" the girls shrieked from the other room, their innocent voices laced with fear. "Just a storm, sweetheart," she called back, a determination igniting. This was it. The reckoning was at hand, not just with her daughter's fears, but with her own. Facing the canvas once more, she embraced the conflicting emotions surging inside her. Maybe tonight she would break the dam that had held back not just her art, but her very essence. Understanding washed over her as she reached for more colors. It was time to transform the canvas, and in doing so, herself. The door creaked open, revealing an unexpected visitor. Someone from her past that held the very key to her hidden vulnerabilities. Would she be able to confront them, or would their presence unravel her newfound commitment? Sarah stood frozen at the threshold. The door slightly ajar, her heart racing, not just from the storm outside, but from the figure standing before her. Eli, an old friend from her art school days. The glow of the living room light illuminated him, and for a moment the past flickered in her mind, a kaleidoscope of laughter, creativity, and unresolved tension. Eli, she breathed, the name holding heavy memories. Once he had been someone she could share her ambitions with, but time and distance had frayed that connection. He stepped forward, his familiar presence both comforting and unsettling. "Sarah," he smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I didn't expect to find you here. It's been a while." His voice was a gentle nudge, coaxing her to confront the fragments of their shared history. "It's a bit chaotic," she said, glancing over her shoulder towards the girls who were still rattled from the thunder. Their innocent fears triggered something deep within her, memories of her own childhood, filled with seeking approval, the longing for peace amidst chaos. "Still making chaos into art, I see," Eli remarked, gesturing toward the burst of colors that dominated her living room. His tone was teasing yet probing. "I've always admired how you could transform your turmoil into something beautiful." A pang of sadness shot through her as she realized how much she had buried her emotional storms, sharing only the finished product with the world rather than the struggle of its creation. "It's not that simple anymore," she said, her voice trailing off. The vulnerability she had just promised to embrace felt precarious. "You know, your work always had this rawness. I thought it was your strength, but also your biggest fear. What happened to that?" Eli's gaze bore into her, as if peeling back layers she had so carefully constructed. "I grew up," she snapped, the protective edge in her voice cloaking her insecurities. She didn't want to admit that his observation dug deep into her deflections, revealing the teenager still trapped inside, who worried about being seen as too emotional or sensitive. "Did you? Or did you just learn to hide it?" he countered, not unkindly. "You don't have to pretend with me. I came here because I can sense you're on the brink of something. You just need to embrace it." An electric tension sparked between them. In that moment, everything felt alive and raw, echoing Lisa's words. This was the conflict she needed, the confrontation with the past that Eli represented. "Why are you really here?" Sarah confronted, her bravery clashing with the impulse to retreat. "Is this some kind of judgment?" She could feel her heart thumping against her rib cage, the vulnerability suddenly feeling like a weight rather than a release. Eli held his hands up, an olive branch of sorts. "No judgment, Sarah, just understanding. I saw one of your pieces back at the gallery, and it struck me. I remember how passionate you used to be, but I also remember how much you struggled with your emotions." Those words hung in the air, vibrant in their honesty. Sarah felt the colors of her canvas fade momentarily as she was forced to confront the truth of herself. "I'm trying to change that," she whispered, the world narrowing down to the honesty of this moment. "Then let me help you find that again," Eli said, a tone of gentleness washing over him. "Your art was always an expression of your truth, not just a pretty picture." His presence, full of memories and reminders of who she once was, ignited a rebellion within her. Was she ready to plunge back into that world where emotion reigned? Where vulnerability wasn't just an asset to camouflage, but the very core of her artistry? As thunder rumbled again, she suddenly felt the storm outside mirror her turmoil inside. This path Eli was inviting her into, was it worth exploring? "Let's talk," she finally said, her voice steadier than before. "But there's a lot to unpack." Eli smiled, a soft, knowing look in his eyes. "I'm here for it all." As they stepped inside, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the storm had only begun, both outside and within. The real journey was about to unfold, pulling her deeper into the whirlpool of emotions and artistry she had so long avoided. But before she could dwell on it, she noticed the awning above, the worn colors clashing against the dreary sky, mirroring her own internal conflict. How would facing her past finally unleash the artist she had been hiding? Would the storm reveal the essence of the truth she was terrified to uncover? The months that followed Sarah's unexpected reunion with Eli unveiled a tapestry woven with burgeoning creativity and profound connection. Each week, they'd meet in her cozy living room, the entrance of a cluttered yet comforting space, now transformed into a sanctuary for raw artistic exploration. Eli became a catalyst, urging Sarah to dig deeper into her emotional landscape and confront the very fears that had once shackled her creativity. It was during one of their late-night sessions, surrounded by scattered brushes, paint splatters, and the gleeful laughter of Lily and Max in the distance, that a breakthrough occurred. Eyeing a nearly complete canvas that embodied the emotional turmoil of motherhood, the vibrant chaos, the gentle love, Eli leaned closer and asked, "What do you want your daughters to feel when they see this? What truth do you hope to share?" The question struck her with a force that stunned her into stillness. She didn't merely want her children to see art. She wanted them to understand the myriad of feelings that came with pursuing one's passion amidst the cacophony of family life. "I want them to know it's okay to be vulnerable," she replied, her voice steady, imbued with newfound assurance. "Life is balanced with beautiful messiness, and it's just as important as the structured moments we cherish." In that moment, clarity washed over Sarah. Vulnerability wasn't a weakness, but the very pulse of her artistry. Existence as both an artist and a mother, they worked late into the night, creating a piece that not only mirrored her life, but conveyed an unfiltered narrative, a blend of heartache, joy, and uncompromising authenticity. On the night before the gallery exhibit, Sarah stood in front of the finished painting, now titled "Embracing the Storm." The piece radiated color and emotion, aptly reflecting her growth, blending layers of hues that resonated with moments of chaos and calm. She knew it showcased not only her personal journey, but also the lessons she wanted to impart to her children. And as her daughters peered at the painting, their eyes wide with wonder, Sarah felt an overwhelming rush of pride. She demonstrated the very essence of pursuing one's passions in tandem with motherhood, each brushstroke illustrating struggles and triumphs, every color echoing her unwavering resolve. On the night of the exhibit, an electric energy enveloped the gallery. As scenes unfolded around her, she felt a swell of gratitude. Every person who gathered, from friends and family to strangers, captivated by the narratives painted on the walls, applauded not only her artistry, but the vulnerability that radiated from her work. Astoundingly, the validation she craved wasn't just for her craft, but also for her as an individual, reclaiming her identity. When the moment came for her to speak, she gathered her thoughts and took a deep breath. "Art is the reflection of our complexities," she began, her voice echoing through the gallery. "In embracing vulnerability, we learn to rise despite chaos and find beauty in the storm." The audience listened, enraptured, and for the first time, Sarah experienced the power of her truth being fully acknowledged. Amidst all the applause, Eli stood in the back, pride dancing in his eyes. Days turned into weeks, and not only did her story resonate in that gallery, but the narrative of her journey began to echo through the community, inspiring conversations about authenticity and the importance of following one's passions without fear. Her piece had sparked genuine connection among local mothers, igniting new dialogues about vulnerability and resilience. On the home front, the transformations rippling outward into her personal life were just as profound. Each evening, she involved Lily and Max in her creative processes, encouraging them to express their feelings through paints and sketches, emphasizing that their emotions were valid and worthy of expression. Their laughter filled the space, filling it with color and chaos, reinforcing Sarah's commitment to nurturing their emotional intelligence. Looking back on her journey, Sarah felt an immeasurable pride, not just for having exhibited her artwork, but for having redefined what it meant to be a mother and an artist. She realized that her triumph wasn't just the success of a gallery showing. It was about proving to herself and her children that vulnerability was an essential part of strength. As she savored this profound realization, a confident smile graced her lips. She had conquered the fears that once held her captive. She exemplified
a life wherein passion and motherhood coalesced beautifully. She emerged unwavering and empowered, having transformed inner uncertainty into tangible achievement. Sarah was not merely an artist, she had become a role model, her journey echoing as a testament to the power of resilience. And as the sun reset on her world, vibrant and exhilarating like the colors reflecting on her canvas, she welcomed its warmth, utterly confident that she could navigate whatever storm awaited her next. Now, if you've been inspired by this story of personal transformation and growth, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support for more exclusive emotional stories that could change lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Trust me, it makes a difference. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. And remember, every comment fuels the narrative, so share your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey below. Your support genuinely matters.